Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the channel. This Saturday is UFC 277, and in the main event, we have Julianna Peña versus Amanda Nunes 2 for the bantamweight title, and this is going to be my full breakdown and prediction. And I know this main event is kind of getting crapped on quite a bit, saying, it's not main event worthy, and we can have that debate, but this fight is very meaningful to the division and very meaningful for women's MMA and just very meaningful in the UFC in general. And, Amanda Nunes got shocked at UFC 269. We're going to talk about that fight a little bit later, but she got upset. Nobody thought she was going to lose. Julianna Peña went out there and beat her by stoppage, and now she's got to try to regain her belt. She's the 145-pound champion. Peña's the 135-pound champion. I get the featherweight division doesn't actually exist, but this is champion versus champion, and honestly, I could see a scenario, win or lose, where Amanda Nunes potentially retires after this fight. If she loses again to Julianna Peña, I don't know what she goes and does after that, because I know you could say, oh, well, she can go defend her belt at 145 pounds. It doesn't exist. There's really not a 145-pound division. And if Peña loses, and let's say she gets smashed by Nunes, a lot of people are going to say, oh, well, it was just a fluke the first time. And then on top of that, if Nunes wins, what else does she have left to prove? She's probably already made a bunch of money from the UFC. She might say, you know what? I want to prove a point. I want to get my belt back, and then I'm going to retire afterwards. Because the state of the women's bantamweight division isn't much better than featherweight. Obviously, it is, just because featherweight's non-existent, but it's just not a great division, and the UFC has not done a great job of developing that weight class. So if you look at the tail of the tape for this fight, you have Julianna Peña is 32 years old. Amanda Nunes is 34. Peña is 5'6". Nunes is 5'8". Peña has a 69-inch reach, and so does Nunes, a 69-inch reach as well. You look at Julianna Peña. She has 15 pro fights. She's 11-4. She's only on a 2-fight win streak. A 2-fight win streak. She got the title shot on a 1-fight win streak. She beat up Sarah McMahon, who was in her 40s, back at UFC 257, January of last year, and she got a title shot off of 1 win, because that's how, that just goes to show the state of the division at that point in time, and it's still kind of like that. She got the shot against Amanda Nunes. Nobody thought she really deserved it, and she got it, and she ended up winning the fight. And this was a fight that was originally supposed to happen in August of last year at UFC 265. Amanda Nunes had to pull out because she had COVID, so it got rescheduled for UFC 269. And that's the most recent fight for Julianna Peña. Her last loss was to Julianna Pena back in October of 2020, where she lost by submission to GDR. That's insanity. Julianna Pena is primarily a striker. And to go out there, Julianna Peña, who's known for her grappling and submission game, to get submitted by her is just insane. And even in the Sarah McMahon fight back, January of last year, Sarah McMahon is a terrible striker. And even though Peña eventually won this round via rear naked choke as well, same way she beat Nunes, she was getting clipped up. I think it was in the first round of this fight. The striking was not looking good. Sarah McMahon's striking is terrible. Before that, she has a win over Nico Montana, who was the original women's flyweight champion, who won it on The Ultimate Fighter, but then never defended it and is out of the UFC at this point. So there's really not a lot of great wins on the resume of Julianna Peña. The best win is probably Kat Zingano. That's all the way back in 2016, 6 years ago. She fought Valentina Shevchenko. She got subbed by her as well. And if you look at her pro losses, she has 1 loss by knockout, 2 losses by submission, and 1 by decision. You look at her wins, she has 11 wins, 3 by knockout, 5 by submission, and 3 by decision. But just not a great resume for Julianna Peña. We're going to talk about the original Nunes fight in a minute, but you look at Amanda Nunes. It's crazy. Amanda Nunes, no matter what, even with this loss of Julianna Peña, she is the consensus women's GOAT. I think she was on a 12-fight win streak up until she lost to Julianna Peña. And I get it, it hasn't been some of the best names. At some point, it just felt like the UFC was throwing her, 135ers who were moving up to 145 just so that she could defend the 145-pound belt, even though the division wasn't there. But she has some great names on the resume as well. She beat Julianna Pena back at UFC 245, dominated her, won by decision. She beat Holly Holm, finished her with a head kick back in July of 2019. That's a solid win. She KO'd Chris Cyborg back at UFC 232 back in December of 2018. And that was a fight that I was really looking forward to, because I honestly believed either girl could have won. And Cyborg came out to brawl. She came out there thinking she was going to bulldoze Nunes. Nunes stayed a technical brawler and knocked her out in the first round. Incredible win. And I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, well, Cyborg was kind of washed up at that point in time. That's not true. That's not true at all. So for Nunes to stop her in the fashion that she did was super impressive. She's got a win over Raquel Pennington. That's okay. It's not great. She TKO'd her. And 2 wins over Valentina Shevchenko. I get it. We can debate the legitimacy of those wins. I thought they were very close. I think I scored the second fight for Valentina Shevchenko. But regardless, Valentina Shevchenko is one of the best women's fighters on the planet. And the fact that it was a close, competitive 2 fights, that says enough about Amanda Nunes. And she won them on the scorecards. Before her last fight with Valentina Shevchenko, she defeated Ronda Rousey. This was Ronda Rousey's comeback fight. This was her first fight after she lost to Holly Holm. She got head kick KO'd by Holly Holm. She waited to return. The title changed hands. Amanda Nunes had the belt, and she decided to come back. She should have came back when Miesha Tate was the champion, because then she could have regained the belt and then retired. But instead, she came back when Amanda Nunes had the belt. And I remember, because Ronda Rousey was actually a star for the UFC. And I remember a lot of casuals were watching Ronda Rousey, and there was people who don't normally watch MMA who were asking me, oh, is Rousey going to beat Nunes? And I remember laughing. I said, Nunes is going to destroy her. And what did she do? She went out there in the first round, brutalized her on the feet, standing TKO. The fight before that, she brutalized Miesha Tate. This was at UFC 200, where she won the championship. I knew that was a massive mismatch against Miesha Tate. I knew she was going to go out there and destroy her. She absolutely destroyed her and took the bantamweight title. And really, her last loss before Julianna Peña is all the way back in 2014 against Kat Zingano, where she got TKO'd in the 3rd round. And if I remember correctly, she was winning this fight early, started to fade, and then Kat Zingano came on late. She had her in full mount, dropping down elbows, just brutalizing her, and eventually got the finish. And that's her only loss in the UFC outside of Julianna Peña. So when you look back on the first fight between Amanda Nunes and Julianna Peña, it was back at UFC 269, December of 2021. Going into that fight, and you can watch, the video is still on this channel, I did a prediction for this fight. And I picked Amanda Nunes, and I was confident in Amanda Nunes, and I think I picked her by 1st round rear naked choke. But in the video, I said I do have a path to victory for Julianna Peña. And basically, my thoughts were, there is a chance that Amanda Nunes is not taking her seriously. She's not training as much. She's coming off COVID. We don't know how that might affect her lungs. And we know Julianna Peña is super confident, and she will move forward, regardless of what we all think. You know, Julianna Peña is going to go in there and get smashed. Julianna Peña believed 100% that she was going to go in there and win, and she was going to try to win. And Amanda Nunes just hasn't met resistance like that in a long time. And when you're champion for so many years and you're destroying, you know, Megan Anderson and Felicia Spencer and Geraint Durandamine and Holly Holm and Chris Cyborg, you know, you probably lose that desire a little bit to train, because you're like, well, I already beat all these great, you know, female fighters. Now I got to beat up Julianna Peña. You know, I can take the day off, or, you know, I only need to train half the time this week. I totally could see that, and I knew it was a terrible recipe, because Julianna Peña will move forward. She will eat shots to land shots, and she does have decent stamina. And I said in that video, and again, I'm not saying I predicted it, because I did not. I said I thought Nunes was going to win, and I was confident in that pick. But I said if all these factors come together, then Julianna Peña could potentially beat Amanda Nunes. And that's exactly what happened. The first round, Nunes looked tired even in the first round. There was a lot of grappling exchanges. Nunes got the better of her on the feet, but there wasn't a lot of, you know, exchanges on the feet. Eventually, they ended up on the ground. At one point, Nunes had her back, and I was like, okay, I'm going to get a perfect prediction here. She's going to rear naked choke her. But she wasn't able to do that. Peña was constantly scrambling, looking to improve her position, and I think it tired out Nunes a bit. And I saw going into that second round, Nunes was looking a little bit tired and looking a little bit off. The second round, they came out, and Nunes decided to stand and trade with her. And I said going into that fight, Nunes is the far superior striker, but I guess she wasn't taking her seriously. She wasn't training enough. Who knows how her lungs were affected. And she went out there, and it was some of the worst striking I've ever seen from both girls. So sloppy, and it was actually kind of embarrassing for the sport of women's MMA. I mean, these were some of the sloppiest combinations by both girls. Both girls were tagging each other. They were getting into a brawl. Nunes was already looking a little bit tired. Both of them were landing shots. Julianna Peña got busted up as well. But I knew in this scenario, I said, this is not going to probably end well for Amanda Nunes. And Julianna Peña hit her with a couple big shots. She hit her with like 4 straight jabs in a row. You know, she hurt her. She backed her up against the fence. She took her down with ease. And then she had the back, but she was in like a side position. Doesn't even get the hooks in. Doesn't even actually get the choke in. And Amanda Nunes tapped. I mean, there wasn't a great angle of the choke. But from what I saw, it was not under the chin, and she was barely squeezing. Julianna Peña, if you go back and watch it, if you don't believe me, didn't even realize she won when the fight was stopped. She asked one of the cut men or whoever came up to her after the fight and said, "Did I win?" Because she was confused because she didn't lock up the choke. She had no positional control. She didn't have the hooks in. She wasn't really squeezing. And Amanda Nunes just quit. She tapped out because she was exhausted from the firefight she had been in. She got clipped up multiple times. She was tired. She knew she was defeated. She knew it was a matter of time. So she just decided to tap out. And it was the fight was over. Everybody was shocked. Like, how did this happen? And I truly believe what happened here was exactly what I talked about earlier in the video and exactly what I said in the original prediction video. I think Nunes said, there's no way Julianna Peña is going to beat me. I'm better than her everywhere. I have better wrestling. I have better submission skills. I have better jiu-jitsu. I have better striking. I have more power. But she did not have more heart. Julianna Peña, that is the one advantage she has in this fight. She has heart and she has stamina as well. And I think, you look at Nunes, she over the course of her career for a long time, since that Kat Zingano loss, she had not faced adversity at all in any of her fights. She did not take Julianna Peña seriously. She had COVID, right? When the fight got canceled for UFC 265 in August. And we know some of these fighters have got affected badly. Khamzat Chimaev even, he threatened retirement because he was dealing with so many issues. Cody Garbrandt had issues. We don't know what kind of issues she's had. And on top of that, I doubt she wanted to pull out again, if she was having some type of issues because she had already pulled out at UFC 265. So I think it was all these factors coming together in a perfect storm to have Julianna Peña upset her in this fight. As far as my prediction for this second fight, I think this is a fight that's actually kind of hard to pick because after watching that first fight, it's hard for me to trust Amanda Nunes' heart. To see her quit like that, when Peña had no hooks, the choke really wasn't in, she wasn't really squeezing, and Nunes just said, what, I'm done, I'm going to tap out. I'm going to go on vacation with my family now. It's hard for me to pick her. But when I look at it skill for skill, and I look back at some of her fights before that, Nunes has the better striking. Nunes has the better wrestling. Nunes has the better jiu-jitsu. Nunes has more power than Julianna Peña. The only worry is the stamina and the heart. And I think in this fight, I think she's going to be more motivated than ever. Everyone always says, motivated BJ Penn, motivated Conor McGregor. He's more motivated than ever. I think Amanda Nunes is pissed off that she lost her belt. I think she went into that fight thinking there's absolutely no chance I lose this fight, and she lost. And I think she's going to come back more motivated than ever. I think she's taking this training camp very seriously, and I think she's going to go out there and look to finish Julianna Peña. And I'm going to go Amanda Nunes via third round TKO. And it sounds weird. Why are you going third round? You would think early because of stamina issues. I think Amanda Nunes is going to take it slow early. I think she's not going to get into a firefight with Julianna Peña. I think she's not going to get into a scramble fest with Julianna Peña. I think she's going to be kicking the leg, pumping the jab, and just looking for openings to land on Julianna Peña. Now, I think Julianna Peña is going to press forward, throw sloppy combinations, and look to get Amanda Nunes into a firefight. But I don't think she's going to be having any of it. I think she's going to be circling. I think she's going to be using her footwork well. I think she's not going to be overextending. I think she's going to be pumping the jab, kicking the leg, moving. And I think eventually, as the fight goes on, I think she's going to bust Julianna Peña up. She might mix in the takedowns at some point. As Julianna Peña presses forward and looks to really put the pressure on Amanda Nunes, she might shoot in on a takedown and take her down. Because I think, even though people think Julianna Peña has some great submission skills, she's getting submitted by Geraint Durandamy. And even in the first fight, when they were on the ground for a long period of time, Julianna Peña was looking for Kimura. Nunes defended easily. I just don't see Peña submitting her unless she's absolutely exhausted like what happened in the first fight. But I think Nunes is going to take this very seriously. I think she's going to be super technical in this fight. And I think as the fight goes on and she busts up Julianna Peña and Julianna Peña gets a little bit more predictable and a little bit more desperate, because Julianna Peña came to win. She is coming to finish Amanda Nunes. There's no doubt about that. She's going to press forward and look for a finish against Amanda Nunes in this second fight. But I think the openings are going to be there for Amanda Nunes. I think, as the fight goes on, she's going to slow down a little bit, but I think Peña is going to slow down a little bit as well. And eventually she's going to find a big shot, land on Julianna Peña's chin, put her down, finish her off with some ground and pound, and regain her bantamweight title. Because if she doesn't, there's nowhere for her to go. Where's she going to go? She has 2 losses to the champion. And again, I know I mentioned in the beginning of the video, she's the champ at 145 pounds. That division does not exist. There's not even a rankings for it on the UFC's website. They have not invested any time into building that division. So I think if Nunes loses this fight, she's probably going to retire. I mean, what are they going to have her? You know, there's not a lot of great contenders in the division anyway. Were they going to have her knock off contenders that could fight Julianna Peña for the belt? No, they're not going to do that. So she kind of has to win this fight. She has to stop Julianna Peña. I don't trust her to go 5 rounds. I think if this fight goes 5 rounds, I could totally see Julianna Peña maybe getting the finish in the 4th or 5th round. But again, I think that Amanda Nunes is going to come in more motivated than ever, in the best shape of her life. I think she's taking Julianna Peña super seriously. She's going to bust her up and be very technical, picking her apart in the first 2 rounds. And then the 3rd round, she's going to find the chin of Julianna Peña and finish her off, you know, drop her, finish her off with ground and pound. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Don't forget to like the video, and thank you so much for watching.